The other thing I was going to say is, you know, the thing about the Trump raid at Mar-a-Lago, it being so galvanizing, to me, it was like, I've seen this happening over and over again to private citizens in the United States. That's what my whole movie is about. And a month ago, 6/22 of this year, a woman called me and told me about a raid that happened at her house. This is like 19 months after January 6th. The FBI storms into her ranch. Her and her husband are asleep. It's the middle of the night. They have security on their gate because both her and her husband are security people. They you know, trained in weaponry and stuff. They provide security. And they see people at their gates. And she says, "This isn't a deer, honey. There's people out there." And all of a sudden, they just break down the gates. They come barreling down their driveway. SWAT teams, they're, you know, throwing flashbangs at them. "Come out of your house with your hands up." And they're screaming, "Where's the warrant? What are you here for?" Basically, they terrorize them. They handcuff them. There's a rental property on their same ranch. They flashbang that. They said, thank God the person that rented there wasn't home. But they just basically handcuffed this couple out on their lawn, pulled the vehicles around their house so that they couldn't see what they were doing, and went inside for 6 hours and ransacked their house. And all the time they're saying, "What are you here for? Where's the warrant?" And they go, "We'll show you when we're good and ready," whatever they said. And he finally says, "What are you looking for?" And he says, "We have a picture of you," says this to the husband, "we have a picture of you attacking a police officer on January 6th inside the building." He said, "I never went in the building. Show me the picture." He says, "No, we'll show it to you later." He says, "I want to see the picture." And he shows him this blurry picture. He says, that could be anybody. That's not me. That's not me. And finally, after this is all over, he said, "Where's the warrant?" one last time. And they said, "We left it on the couch." And they go in and they look at the warrant. It's on the couch, and it says they were looking for 3 items: a Trump beanie, a Trump gaiter, and a puffy black coat. 3 articles of clothing.
Insane.
And they terrorize these people in this way. So why do they do that? What is the point of doing that? There's no justice involved. 3 articles of clothing.
And fairly common items.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, I was there. Everybody had a puffy coat and like a Trump hat on. I mean, it's like, it's just
so generic. It could have been anyone. They specifically wanted to go to this.
But this is systematic. This is not just happening to Trump. It's happening to normal people.
It's why I've been obsessive lately. Another reason of this pardon, why I think a mass pardon is on the horizon, because it's like this Blackstone's formula, man. It's like it's been echoing in my consciousness. It's better that we let 1,000 guilty people go than somebody has to sit in prison that's innocent.
I don't know about the, you know, to what extent we could do pardons, because I would not agree with, like, you know, Hunter Biden being pardoned or anything like that. But I will say that I think we took a wrong turn when this country decided that we should hand off our responsibility towards personal protection to external governmental agencies. So it used to be that communities were self-policing. The local militia would take care of their local issues, and there was a duly elected sheriff and maybe a deputy. Nowadays, cities all have their own departments where they have monopolies on how to deal with these issues. And depending on how big the city is, it gets worse and worse. For instance, in New York, where you can't have a gun, you can't defend yourself, violating the Constitution and your rights. I think maybe the issue should just ultimately go back to, you know what? If we need law enforcement and judicial system for probably property crimes to deal with resolving those things. But in terms of, you know, any other kind of violent crime or robbery, I think 2A takes care of all that stuff. Armed society is a polite society. People should have their right to protect themselves, and we should restore responsibility to the greatest degree we can to the individuals. And so, you know, I'm mentioning that in terms of the pardoning of people perceived as being violent. I'm kind of like, yeah, you know what? If someone is convicted duly and it's proven they've done this beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of their peers, by all means, you know, they've gone through due process. They can be deprived of their rights and locked up. But for the most part, I'm kind of like, you know, we don't need all these cops. We don't need to be dealing with this prison system if people were just armed like Second Amendment prescribes.
Yeah.
Well, you got to protect
Agreed.
against
Vigilantism.
there, you know.
No, it's not. It's not. I understand that.
Someone with a gun being like, I thought they were invading my house. I didn't know. Like, that's a big problem.
That's why that's property crimes, right? That's why we do need some kind of system. But I think duly elected law enforcement. I'm talking about we shouldn't be worried about walking down the street.
No, we should have local law enforcement as the first gate. For sure. And that should even protect you from federal law enforcement that's gone overboard, or state law enforcement that's gone overboard as your local law enforcement. And if there are none, then you have to take it on your own shoulders.
That's what happened to these people that I was just talking about. They reached out to the sheriff to say, you know, these people, the FBI, why were you allowing them to violate our rights this way? And the sheriff's job should have been to step in and protect them, but he wouldn't do anything.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess he was afraid. I don't know why.
Did he know about it?
He knew about it after the fact, you know, and they asked him for help. And because what happens to these people most of the time is that these break-ins happen, and I've talked to a lot of people that this happened to. The FBI comes and terrorizes them, then breaks down their door and does whatever they do, and then they just never hear from them again.
Do you think local...
They're sitting there waiting for charges. They hire a lawyer. Charges never come. The lawyer tells them to be quiet, don't say anything, because, you know, we don't know what the FBI is going to do. So it just kind of puts a hush over everything, and these people are just sitting there waiting for the next shoe to drop.
The kind of thing where, like, if they leave the country just on a vacation, that they could get charged for as a flight thing.
Right.
You can't get charged for leaving. That's the thing about Trump's passports, too. I think it's a really weird sign. Because you're right, he wasn't charged. Yeah, you can leave. I mean, they'll say, you know, don't leave, but you can't tell you what to do. You can leave unless they charge you.
I think they say sometimes, like, when you leave, it makes you look more guilty. Like, they try to scare you into not going anywhere because they can't tell you not to go, but they say, like, well, but in court it'll look like you left the country on this grand conspiracy or whatever. I was going to ask you if you feel like local law enforcement for the most part feels like they have to cede jurisdiction to the federal government. I mean, from what I know, which is very limited on how law enforcement works, often it becomes, once the federal government has you know, whether it be you know, the FBI or whatever, that once they get involved with something, they, you know, have jurisdiction. They are allowed to take the lead on whatever case they want, often to the detriment. Local law enforcement often feels like that hurts some of the cases they're working on.
Well, it varies sheriff to sheriff. You know, the sheriff is the local law enforcement that's elected by those people, and you have strong ones and you have weak ones.
Do you think if we had more, like, a better understanding of federalism and, like, the individual governments of state, people would feel like they could hold their elected sheriffs accountable to opposing the FBI?
Yeah. And a lot of the people who run for sheriff run on that platform. You know, we're going to protect your Second Amendment rights. We're going to make sure that, you know, the federal government can't come in and take your weapons. But then when it happens, they're intimidated and they don't do anything.
Yeah. Do you think in some ways it's because they, you know, I just think about all the some of the COVID regulations and questions about, like, if you get money through Medicare or Medicaid, you have to enforce the things the federal government has said. I wonder if it works in the same way with law enforcement. They aren't sure what pressure is going to be put on them, so they just don't act at all, you know?
Yeah, I'm sure it's like that. It's like the educational system, too. You know, there was so much federal money tied to mask mandates and to vaccine mandates that the school systems, in order to get that federal money, they decided that
they have to comply.
They have to comply.
I mean, this is how we got the drinking age to where it is, right? They held the highway funding hostage until everyone would agree to make it 21.
Yeah, and thank God they did that, you know, after I had already had my fun.
Where did you grow up?
North Carolina.
Okay, because there were North Carolina was one of the last holdouts, or maybe it was South Carolina. I can't remember the story completely, but I remember them being like, no problem, federalism, we love it, except we aren't going to give you any money for your highways unless you comply. I mean, they got really they got shanghaied into doing exactly what the federal government wants, which I think is how, for the most part, you know, so much of this happens. I can only imagine what it's like to be a part of local law enforcement that, you know, worries what kind of funding they're going to get if they say no, when they already know, you know, from my understanding, most local law enforcement is understaffed anyways.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff Villanova in Los Angeles County is really one of the better ones. He's been doing a really good job at standing up to some of the mask nonsense and all the federal mandates there. but it just varies, you
Yeah.
know, place to place.
When you were working on your movie, was like the role of local law enforcement in the investigation, did it come up a lot
In which?
in your movie on January 6th, your documentary?
Well, no, because mostly what we wound up focusing on is the stories of people who, you know, were there on January 6th and who didn't really do anything wrong or violent, and who subsequently got visited and persecuted, and some of whom are put in jail.
And none of them said, I wish my local sheriff had stepped in? Or did they feel like their state law enforcement didn't have anything to do with?
Well, it all
to them?
happened so suddenly. You know, these things just come at they come at 5:30 in the morning, 6 in the morning.
Right.
There's no warning. A lot of these people never have been arrested for anything before in their lives, and in that case, you would expect like a phone call. You would expect them to say, "We'd like to talk to you," but instead they just bust in.
We do have an update that actually came out just before we started the show. So apologies for not seeing this sooner. This was posted by Kyle Cheney of Politico. The Trump team is publicizing this email, which shows the DOJ obtained 3 passports, 2 expired, not 1, as Trump said. No, Trump said, oh, okay, Trump said 1 was expired, and alerted Trump's lawyers. They were recovered by a filter team, which weeds out privileged info. Trump publicized this after DOJ offered them back.
Oh, interesting.
So, yes, but I don't think that means anything, that last point. Like, Donald Trump learned that they took his passports and then complained, they took my passports?
Right.
So the email says, Evan Jim, we have learned that the filter agent seized 3 passports belonging to President Trump, 2 expired and 1 being his active diplomatic passport. We are returning them, and they will be ready for pickup at WFO at 2 p.m. today. I am traveling, but you can coordinate further with redacted, copied above. Thanks. So it looks like they did take his passports, and it was the accident narrative, I suppose. And Trump was correct when he said they took them. And I don't know why it matters that Trump publicized it after they offered them back.
I mean, I feel like they're trying to say, like, he's so petty. They offered to give him back, but it's like, why did they take them in the first place?
Yeah, exactly.
Big deal.
I don't think that that's fair. I mean, I think for the rest of the week, we'll see that a lot. Well, they offered to give it back. It's not that big a deal, but it is. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
His active diplomatic passport? Are you kidding me? They just like stumbled across it. We're like, we don't know what this is, so we'll just take it with us.
And it's active?
That's what it says.
As a former president, can he still use a diplomatic passport? I guess he can, right?
Scroll down to the email again. It says active in there, I think.
No, it does. It does. But I'm wondering, can a former president
can
use
do
a
with
diplomatic
it.
passport?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, he must be able to use it, otherwise it wouldn't be active, is all I can say to that. I think that,
I
like,
guess, right.
it must be privileges for a while. I mean, I don't know. I'm not as well versed in what privileges are extended to the president
bet it
after they leave
does.
office.
Like, what is it? Like, if you're in Congress, you retain your security passes for life or something like that? Is that how it works?
It's
I
probably
don't know.
something like
But
that.
there are extensions like that. And to a certain extent, he's still a political figure of the United States. I mean, he still travels quite a bit and is a representation of the country. I can only see that there's some explanation as to why they'd have it.
It's such an unprecedented time, you know. It's like he's not being treated like any former president of the United States. He's being treated like a criminal. So, I don't know.
I was just thinking, our legal system, the main purpose is to protect the innocent. That is why we built it. That's why we have it in place. It is not to find and destroy guilt or evil. It is to protect innocent people. If someone, as a byproduct of the protection of the innocent, is charged, then that happens. But
It should be that way.
yes,
I don't know if it's always
it
been
cannot
that way.
function any other way. Otherwise, it becomes a self-persecuting immolation.
A lot of it is retribution.
That's a problem. That's a
Like,
problem. That's when
this is-
societies consume themselves is with retribution.
There's 500 people or more in jail in D.C. right now. Most of them have not even been
innocent
charged.
people because until they're proven guilty, they are innocent.
Right, but they've been holding them for over 18 months.
With no charges.
No charges. Yeah. And one of them there, I was told by somebody a friend of his, he's there because he saw something that happened with Roseanne Boylan, one of the women who died on January 6th. He saw what happened there, and they don't want him telling what he saw.
So he can't write a letter?
I don't know. I'm just telling you.
But
I'm
if you're
just
in jail-
reporting what I was told. I don't know if any of this is true.
I was gonna say, if you're in prison, they're
but,
controlling your
you know,
mail.
it's like you start kind of trying to look for any kind of conspiracy theory, any kind of explanation for why they would hold somebody without charges for 18 months. It doesn't make any sense. There must be some reason.
Well,
I'm not a fan of the...
I was just saying it's exactly what they say a lot of law enforcement does to people of color who are held on bad charges and are not fairly treated. It's, it always bothers me that there's no consistency applied. If you believe in criminal justice reform, you should believe in it for everybody. But it's just, this is worth overlooking, I guess.
Yeah, moral logic isn't the strong point of the left. There's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of the death penalty is that often people say it's just retribution. And I'm like, I don't know what is served through retribution. I've seen more than enough movies, comics, anime, you name it, cartoons, where the protagonist explains revenge never makes the pain go away. It never solves the problem. I think it was even Batman explained it one time. So I see these stories and it's just like families, I was told by someone, when those families don't get the justice of watching the person who, committed the crime being put to death or whatever, I'm like, I don't know if retribution is going to solve anything for us, or just an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.